Hello everybody, welcome back to Hidden Harvest with Liz. I am Liz, and today we're going to be walking around the garden and seeing what is going on. It is basically a journal time. I am in 8B, I guess, with the new, it says 8B, yeah, with the new zoning system, and I am in mid-Georgia. So these are the types of things that we've currently got planted. Right behind me is my garden, and as you can see, we're working on the cattle panel trellising where a lot of crops are actually going to be growing. But just as a warning to others, whenever people say go to get cattle panel trellises, they're cheap, they're easy, and everything else like that, make sure you get a thick enough gauge on the cattle panels, because not all cattle panel is made equally. I have found out the hard way. These are kind of flappy, so we're using some piping to go inside of there in order to fix it. But right now, let's actually get into what I got planted last night, what I'm actually going to be seeding in ground today, and plans for the future. Okay, so last night we actually got all of our tomatoes planted. These are all my paste tomatoes. I've got one batch going in here, and one batch going in there, and possibly another batch going in over there. I need to remember to point through the camera instead of where I'm looking. So one here and one there, and basically I've got these guys in ground. I've got some others that are already starting to seed that are, I'll show the seeding area in just a minute. But I've got some more to go in there, and I will probably go and get some starts later on that will go in there. I would like to try and do my paste tomatoes in succession so that all of the paste tomatoes are not getting done at the exact same time. And the plants are not all trying to put on fruit at the same time, so I can easily harvest everything. I will likely just take the paste tomatoes, prep them a little bit, put them in a bag, and put them in the freezer until the end anyway. But as long as I'm not trying to gather up and falling behind on all of the crops at the same time, it's kind of the goal there. So next up, we've got a few things over here with the other paste tomatoes. Well, with the other tomatoes go, I have got my cherry tomatoes planted here. I got the cut and come again zinnias planted here. I've got one of my snapdragons there. And then I've got some of my calendulas planted here. A bit of sage, I can't see because the sun on my screen is not bright enough. And then I've got some thyme here, a bit of thyme here, and a tiger lily, I guess. At least I think that's what it's called. So right here, actually growing up the cattle panel trellis, is going to be my cherry tomatoes right here, and right here, along with the nasturtium right there. And then over here, I am in all likelihood going to go ahead and plant some more tomatoes here. And at the end of the season, when these come up, I'll be putting in some bush beans. And also, as you can see, my radishes are already starting to dwindle. We have already had our first harvest of radishes. So what I will likely do is take these radishes up, wait about a week, and then plant some more radishes in, because I already have another bed that's got the second grouping of radishes. And I will basically alternate from side to bed, from one side of the bed to the other side of the bed to the other side of the bed, planting in successions of radishes until they just simply stop fruiting. Well, not fruiting, but seeding, because it will get too hot eventually for them to come up. In this bed right here, I've got a volunteer sunflower, and I've got all of my peppers planted. This is the hot pepper planting. We've got our jalapenos, the early jalapenos. We got some Thais. We got some, I can't remember how they're said, the peppercini or whatever. And then we've got our poblanos, which are not necessarily spicy, but they have a little bit, just a tiny, very tiny bit of kick as far as I know. But they're all planted here. And then I've got all of my bell peppers here, along with the one that managed to overwinter properly. Tucked in among all of these are some epazote that are supposed to be for beans, and on the trellis that we have here is where I'm going to start planting some of my beans. The purple hull beans is what's going to go in the ground here. Plus I do have one tomato that is a cherry tomato that's right there in the middle, so it'll be like a beans and tomato kind of thing. I will just have to keep a very close eye on it to make sure it doesn't get too congested and mildewed. And of course a volunteer sunflower and an artichoke. Not really sure how I feel about the artichoke being there. I will likely transfer it to another area, but it really needed to go in ground before I killed it. So that's where it wound up. We'll see how it goes and whether or not it even survives this summer. I have already shown you guys my potatoes a couple of times and everything that is inside this bed, but I just want to state on here that as soon as these guys come up, I've already got some bush beans to go in here too. And then over here, my onions, which I've already shown, we'll likely get some more bush beans as soon as this one. I've got like 2 or 3 different types, so I'll plant one here and one here as soon as these are done. And then I've got a red cherry tomato, which is an indeterminate variety that will be going over this trellis. And over here, nothing yet. I think I'm going to be putting some squash into this bed. I don't know, I have to look at my diagram, which is what I'm going to be working on today. Not sure if you guys can actually see it, but I've got my first thing of corn already starting to sprout, which means in 1 week, I'll be planting the other side of the bed, so I don't get the harvest at the exact same time. These are going to be fresh eating corn, so I don't need all of this corn at the same time. And then of course over here, this is where I said the okra was going to be, so we don't need to worry about that bed. And then over here in a whole lot of shade, this is going to be the best place to plant anything that's not necessarily going to enjoy the heat, which is where I'm probably going to plant most of my lettuce, where I've got my celery in, assuming it survives at all. I've got my dill over here. I have got the chicory over here. I have got a couple of snapdragons over here, and I've got my chamomile over here. Plus, underneath this side of the bed and underneath that side of the bed, that one's ginger, this is turmeric. I did think, I do apologize, it's early in the day, but there we go. I do apologize, it's really early in the day and it's already hot and it's already busy. I wanted to go ahead and get this recording out because as soon as midday hits and right around 1 o'clock, all of the neighbors get up and start doing all their things, including playing their radios, so it's very, very hard. We have an airplane, I know that's probably going to be picked up. It's very hard to get recordings done on the weekend because everybody around here wakes up, so it's hard to get those done. And I did record another recording, but I just realized I time-lapsed it, but it was a what-if video, so that's not going to work, is it? Alright, anyway, what else I wanted to talk about is there's going to be a whole lot of succession sowing that is going on. Right now I've got like a little bit of lettuce right there. I'm going to be seeding up a little bit more lettuce in a couple of other beds, waiting for those guys to show up, and then doing more in other places. I've already talked about the succession sowing that's going to be going on probably the end of May, I think, is probably when the potatoes and onions will be in. So it won't be until after then, which is still plenty of time to get beans in the ground and harvest those before it gets, too cold or anything else like that. But mainly that was the things that I got done last night, and I will be seeding in ground more things today, like the squash and the cucumbers. And what else did I pull? The squash, cucumbers. Okay, what else I have pulled? Yeah, I've got my cucumbers, I've got my squashes, I've got 2 different types of squash I'm going to be putting in the ground today. That's actually what is going on. And it is April 19th. Hang on. I can actually tell you guys what date it is. 20th. It's April 20th. Okay, there we go. April 20th, this is all the stuff that I am planting. I have got my garbanzo beans. I am pretty sure I'm going to make an entire bed of those. And the purple whole peas, which are pole beans, are going to go probably in, let's see, 6, 7, 8, 9, in bed number 9. And then I've got my cucumbers. I've got like several different varieties of cucumbers that I'm going to try out and just see which ones produce things. And that'll be the one that I know for next year. It's going to be a Tasty Green Hybrid, which is a longer one. It's less spiny. And then I've got the Tender Green, the Spring Burpless. I kind of really just want to do this burpless kind because it's supposed to attract less of the... It's one of the predators for cucumbers. Plus, it's supposed to, be less bitter and everything else like that. Plus, I've got this like really weird lemon cucumber that came in the batch of stuff and things that I got. So, yeah, I'm gonna grow them and see if they grow here. Could be interesting. I got my beans. I also had, cantaloupe. I was supposed to say I should have had cantaloupe in here. My husband's gonna be like, "Where's my cantaloupe?" if I don't get the cantaloupe. And I got some cucamelons that are gonna be going in one of the back beds towards where the carrots and stuff are. Not carrots, but corn, where the corn is. So that's all those that I pulled for me to do today. And then if I could find some spaces for this, I've got a whole lot of sunflowers, which I did get some volunteer sunflowers from last year's garden. Some of the soil from my old garden came into here to replenish this. So some of the seeds from the old garden actually germinated here, which means those are very strong sunflowers. I have got this teddy bear sunflower. that I have seen is I've heard is an actually very, very cute, very adorable looking one. And then I've got this moonflower that I want to put on one of the trellises. I just don't know where. I'm thinking along with the beans and then the front trellis, which the front trellis is going to have cherry tomatoes. So this is going to be kind of drowned out, but they'll only bloom at night anyway. I still think it would look cool on like every other trellis is what I'm thinking. I don't know. I've never tried to grow. First off, I'm not really sure how well these trellises are going to hold up because they're the wrong gauge wire for what we're trying to do. We've already got plans that at the end of the year, these are going to come down and we're going to go get the right kind. But for this year, since we've already spent the money, it's a little too late to go try and back out now. We're going to rig it for this year. And then I could take those wiring things down and not going to waste them. We're going to take them and put them probably halfway in between the beds. That way, whenever I do things like beans or peppers or tomatoes or something like that, I will actually have something to anchor them to instead of having to put in stakes, which is what I'm going to have to do right now with this bed right here. I'm going to have to put some stakes in and probably rope them up to make sure that they stay there because I don't have enough tomato cages, and the tomato cages usually are not tall enough anyway. So, and that's on, I'm trying to think, those are Romas, not Amish paste. Those are Romas. So they're going to get a pretty decent height, but they are a determinate one. And they'll put on all their fruit and then they're done. So as soon as those guys get done, those come out and the next cropping will go here, which will likely be another type of bean. Preferably a shelling bean, but I'm not really sure because I've already got one shelling bean. We don't use a whole lot of pinto beans, but I might try to stick some pinto beans in the ground and just see if I can get a harvest out of them and they can dry before the end of the season. We'll see. But right now, we're going to be doing a whole lot more videos, a whole lot more often. I'm going to try and keep these journals as close to when I plant and do things as possible, because not only will it let you guys know in this area if you happen to be around the same zone, around the temperate the climate that I am, that it might also be time for you to plant these things too, or it could just be a warning for next year that now is a bad time to plant whatever it was I put in the ground because it didn't turn out great, and this is just like a warning for next year's garden. Don't do it. Yeah, that was all the things that I got planted. I'm very excited to finally get the tomatoes in the ground, and I am already starting to think ahead of what's going to be going into the ground after whatever it is fully gets done, and succession sowing, and for next year's garden, what it is that worked now or what doesn't work now, as in these trellises don't get this gauge wire that I got because it did not work. If I can find the information, I'm pretty sure I threw away the paper, but if I can remember, or if I can go back to Home Depot or find it on their website, I'll try and link the type that I got, and just don't get that kind because it's not strong enough. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is just a quick update on what I got done last night, what I'm going to be doing today, and I will see you maybe next week whenever we go to be planting some more stuff and things. I will see you then. You have a wonderful day, wonderful night, and you stay shiny. Bye!